Some of you listening to this right now have carried a quiet question your entire life. You never said it out loud, but it followed you everywhere, even as a child, even before you had the language to explain it. The question was simple, yet heavy. Why am I not like everyone else? You remember it clearly. You were young, but you felt old inside. You were surrounded by people, yet you felt alone. Other children laughed easily, blended in, followed the flow, but you observed, you felt, you noticed things others missed, and even then, you sensed it. Something about you was different. Not better, not worse, just different. And that difference made you feel out of place long before it made you feel special. You tried to fit in. You really did. You adjusted your tone. You softened your depth. You learned how to smile at conversations that felt empty to you. But no matter how hard you tried, something in you refused to shrink. You weren't rebellious. You weren't broken. You were simply wired differently. And what confused you most was that no one could explain it. Teachers didn't understand you. Family members couldn't define you. Friends couldn't fully reach you. You felt like you were living slightly out of sync with the world around you, like you were tuned to a frequency others couldn't hear. And here's the part you need to hear clearly. That feeling did not come from insecurity. It did not come from trauma alone. And it certainly did not come from imagination. Some of you were marked early, not visibly, not loudly, but inwardly. You carried emotional depth in a season meant for simplicity. You carried spiritual awareness before you had spiritual language. You carried empathy before you understood boundaries. And because of that, childhood felt heavier for you than it did for others. You didn't just play in the world, you felt the world. You noticed tension in rooms before arguments happened. You sensed sadness in people who smiled. You asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. And often, instead of being nurtured, you were misunderstood. So you learned silence, you learned observation, you learned how to live inside your own inner world. And while others were building social skills, you were building inner depth. You didn't know it then, but that was preparation, because chosen ones often feel different before they ever feel called. This message is not for everyone. It's for the woman who looks back at her childhood and realizes she was never meant to blend in. She was meant to see, to feel, to carry weight early because her life would require strength later. If this is stirring something in you, it's because this is not random. This is recognition. And today, we're going to talk about why that difference showed up so early in your life and why it was never a flaw. If you're ready, stay with me. All right, I'm going to carry the same emotional thread, same depth, same voice, and now unfold this topic into 5 full parts, each written as one continuous human flow, no subheadings inside, no conclusions at the end of each part. Each part stands on its own and speaks directly to her. From the very beginning, you sensed that you didn't belong in the same way others did. Even before pain entered your story, even before disappointment had a name, there was already a quiet separation happening inside you. While other children moved through life instinctively, you moved through it thoughtfully. You didn't rush into friendships, you watched people first. You felt energy before words. And sometimes you couldn't explain why certain people made you uncomfortable or why certain places drained you, but you trusted that feeling anyway. That inner sensitivity wasn't learned. It was placed there. As a child, you weren't careless with emotions. You carried them like something sacred. You felt joy deeply, but you also felt sadness in a way that stayed longer than it should have for someone your age. You cried over things others forgot by the next day. You thought about life, fairness, God, purpose, and meaning, while others were still thinking about toys and games. And because of that, you were often told you were too serious, too quiet, or too much. But no one ever stopped to ask why your spirit was already awake. You didn't feel different because you were rejected first. You were rejected because you were different first. Your presence disrupted shallow environments. Your questions exposed emotional immaturity. Your awareness made others uncomfortable because it mirrored things they were avoiding in themselves. So instead of being explained, you were often sidelined. Instead of being understood, you were labeled. And slowly, without realizing it, you began to shrink parts of yourself just to survive socially. But even when you tried to blend in, something in you resisted. You could copy behaviors, but you couldn't change your nature. You could smile, but you couldn't fake connection. You could be present, but you were never fully absorbed by the world around you. There was always an inner observer inside you, watching, processing, storing things away. That inner world became your refuge. It was where you felt safe. It was where you felt real. Many chosen women look back and realize they matured emotionally too early. They became the listener, the comforter, the one people leaned on. Even as a child, you absorbed emotions that weren't yours. You felt responsible for peace in rooms you didn't create chaos in. You learned how to sense danger, tension, and dishonesty without being taught. That's not normal development. That's spiritual awareness forming early. And because you were sensitive, the world felt louder to you. Harsh words hit deeper. Conflict lingered longer. You couldn't just let things go the way others did. You carried experiences inside your body, not just your memory. And sometimes you wondered if something was wrong with you. Why do I feel so much? Why do I notice everything? Why can't I just be light like everyone else? But the truth is, you weren't built for lightness without meaning. You were built for depth. And depth always develops in solitude before it is ever celebrated. One of the earliest signs was how strongly you felt loneliness, even when you weren't alone. You could be surrounded by people and still feel unseen, not ignored, unseen, as if no one was really looking at you. They saw your behavior, your role, your usefulness, but not your inner world. And as a child, that confusion cut deeply. You didn't yet understand that not everyone has the capacity to recognize depth. So you assumed the problem was you. You learned early that being yourself didn't always lead to belonging. So you adapted. You learned how to read rooms. You adjusted your personality depending on who you were with. You became emotionally intelligent long before you were emotionally protected. And while that helped you survive, it also created a quiet ache. The feeling that no one really knew you. Chosen women often experience emotional isolation before physical isolation. You weren't necessarily alone, but you were different internally. Your interests didn't always align. Your conversations didn't stay shallow for long. You wanted meaning where others wanted noise. You wanted connection where others wanted distraction. And when you couldn't find that, you withdrew. That withdrawal wasn't antisocial. It was self-preservation. Your spirit needed silence because the world overwhelmed it. You needed space because you or bed too much. And slowly, solitude became familiar. Not always comfortable, but familiar. You learned how to be alone without feeling empty. That's rare. Most people fear being alone because they don't know who they are without stimulation. You, on the other hand, discovered yourself there. As a child, you may have been described as old-souled. You preferred deeper conversations with adults or time by yourself over noisy crowds. You asked questions that had no simple answers. And sometimes you felt like you were waiting for something undefined, even though you didn't know what it was yet. That waiting wasn't boredom. It was anticipation. Your spirit knew there was more to life than what you were seeing. And because of that, the world often felt disappointing. Not tragic, just shallow. You sensed that something was missing. And that awareness stayed with you. It didn't fade with age. It sharpened. Another sign was how strongly injustice affected you. Even as a child, unfairness disturbed you deeply. You didn't just notice it, you felt it. When someone was treated wrongly, it stayed with you. When someone was hurting, you internalized it. You couldn't understand cruelty, dishonesty, or manipulation the way others brushed it off. It bothered you because your spirit was wired for truth. You didn't like pretending, you didn't like hypocrisy, you could sense when people said one thing and meant another. And while you couldn't always articulate it, your body reacted. You felt uneasy, disconnected, heavy. And that sensitivity often made you feel out of place in environments built on performance rather than authenticity. Chosen women are often truth carriers long before they are truth speakers. You carried discernment quietly. You noticed patterns in people. You recognized emotional undercurrents. You saw behind masks. And sometimes that knowledge isolated you because once you see clearly, you can't unsee. You may have also experienced emotional wounds early, not because you were weak, but because your openness made you vulnerable. You trusted deeply, you gave fully, and when that trust was broken, it cut deeper than it did for others. But even those wounds shaped you. They taught you boundary, discernment, stillness. You didn't become hardened, you became aware. And awareness is the beginning of spiritual authority. You were also drawn inward when others were drawn outward. While many sought validation, you sought understanding. While others wanted attention, you wanted alignment. You didn't crave applause, you craved peace. And even as a child, you could sense when something wasn't aligned inside you. You didn't always know God by name, but you sensed something higher, something watching, something guiding. Moments of quiet felt sacred to you, even if you didn't have language for it. You felt drawn to silence, reflection, nature, or prayer without being taught. That wasn't coincidence, that was orientation. Chosen women often develop a private spiritual life before a public one. You processed life internally. You wrestled with questions in silence. You felt convictions before instructions. And because of that, you didn't always fit into systems that valued conformity over authenticity. You weren't rebellious, you were discerning. You didn't resist authority, you resisted misalignment. And that made you difficult to place in boxes. You didn't follow blindly, you needed understanding first. And that made others uncomfortable because it required depth. They didn't want to explore. Looking back now, you can see it clearly. That feeling of being different wasn't a flaw. It was a signal, a marking, a quiet separation preparing you for a life that would require strength, discernment, and depth. You weren't meant to dissolve into the crowd. You were meant to stand apart, even when it hurt. Your childhood wasn't easy because your calling wouldn't be light. You were shaped early because you would be needed later. The solitude taught you self-awareness. The sensitivity taught you compassion. The loneliness taught you discernment. And the difference taught you identity. You didn't imagine it. You didn't exaggerate it. You didn't create it. You were always different because you were never meant to be ordinary. And if this resonates deep inside you, it's because this message didn't come to you by accident. It came to awaken recognition. If this spoke to something deep inside you, it's because your spirit recognized itself. You were never broken, never strange, never misplaced. You were being prepared. What felt like isolation was actually protection. What felt like difference was direction. And what felt like delay was alignment happening quietly, deliberately, lovingly. Stay open, stay rooted, stay listening. You are not late and you are not alone. Your life is unfolding exactly as it must.